Good afternoon and welcome to your weekly current affairs program, 60 Minutes Nigeria. It's a delight to be back after a while. Okay, so my name is Osun and today's program promises to be educative, enlightening, interactive. I have with me very distinguished personalities today. I have Professor Joe Bodion, a legal practitioner. We call him a legal luminary. Nice to have you with us today.
Nice to see you, Osun. Good afternoon, our viewers and listeners.
We also have with us a highly respected man of God, a clergyman who also understands the political terrain in this country, Dr. Emeka Ikoga. Nice to have you with us today.
God bless you. Well, for Nigerians, here is well with you all.
We also have with us a statistician, an academia, and of course somebody that can analyze the nitty-gritty of the political terrain as well in Nigeria. Dr. Maxwell Osage, nice to have you with us today.
Thank you, Rosa.
Okay.
Nigeria, good afternoon.
Just before we started this program, one of my guests said, oh, we look forward to May 29th. May 29th has become a defining moment in the political annals of Nigeria. Then we'll be having a change of one democratically elected administration to another. What a wonderful story that Nigeria's democratic story has remained unbroken. That is an achievement. On today's program, we are looking at the role of courts. We've seen that Nigeria's democracy seems to be hinged on court verdicts. And we'll be taking a case study, Osun State. Osun State, the Supreme Court holds sway. The Supreme Court has just a few days ago delivered a verdict in favor of Adeleke as the duly elected governor of Osun State. And the man who took Adeleke to court has congratulated him. So that's to tell you that the courts have a very, very overriding role over elections, over the practice of democracy in Nigeria. That's the premise on which we'll build and develop our discussion today. And we'll start with a professor of law, Professor Joe Bodion, to actually tell us if this is the norm. Prof, is this the norm? Must Nigerians continue to wait for the courts to deliver judgment to define our elections?
Thank you, Osun. Once more, good afternoon, our viewers at home. Well, I don't think Nigerians actually have to wait for the courts to determine winners of election or to determine the tide of elections.
Okay.
Nigerians actually are not waiting for the courts to determine that in real sense. Because what the courts do is not to determine, it's to affirm or to disprove. So what you find is that the INEC as an institutional body has been established and empowered by law to conduct and of course to declare results and make returns of elections. When they make these declarations and returns, of course, the prima facie, as they say, on the face value, it is the position that whoever is declared is the winner of the election and should occupy the office. So once the results have been declared and return made by the appropriate authority, in this case INEC, the waiting game actually is over for Nigerians in the real sense. What is now, the suspense that comes is because the parties or the aspirants or the candidates, as we said, is what proper candidates, are not satisfied with the outcome. Of course, it will also dovetail to the voters who voted across board with the outcome. So you now want a reaffirmation or at least a cancellation or what we call a judgment that will either affirm or cancel or nullify, that's the word I look for, nullify that return made by INEC. Because INEC as an administrative body is not a law to himself. It is subject to what we call judicial review, like all organs of government, like all other institutions. So the courts, naturally, using the constitutional provision, now without going into specifics, have that power to review all our actions, both as an administrative body whatever institution you find yourself at, even as individuals. So the courts have that final authority of adjudication, which is to settle disputes, and of course to interpret the law as it were. So if INEC makes a valid return or not, has to be tested in court. So that becomes the second phase. So maybe coming to your term, the waiting game can either be prolonged or can end with INEC. It gets prolonged with INEC when one of the disputants does not agree with the result. In 2015, when, of course, former President Jonathan considered and accepted the result, there was no...
Even before the announcement of the last... the last vote...
There was no need to... Before the election return was made, he had considered because he already had the result, had the feelers, and he felt it was okay, let me not bother. So we didn't have to wait for the court, because INEC had made it. But in this case, of course, even before elections results were made, people were already crying foul and, complaints here and there. And of course, when the final return was made, you find that people have gone to court to challenge it. So the court must rise up to its billing, to its responsibility, which is constitutional.
Yes.
That's what they have been established to do. In this case, the tribunals, because the appeal court sitting as a tribunal is now empowered by the Constitution and the Electoral Act of the Constitution primarily to adjudicate over such electoral disputes. So they are not determining who has won. Then are they going to? Do you have to wait for them ordinarily? If you have a choice, you can expect not wait for them.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Dr. Emeka, you have followed, our own democratic practice in this country. And just like what happened in Osun State, they needed to go through the court processes until the apex court, the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court delivered a judgment in favor of the incumbent governor. And that that rested all the litigations. Now, just like I asked the prof, most times the courts have a very pivotal role in terms of who governs this country or who governs these states in this country. Yes.
Yeah, the court in Nigeria is one of the major department that strengthens democracy.
Okay.
And like you just said or asked, Prof made a reference to that. In every election in Nigeria, it's not everyone that contests to be satisfied.
Okay.
And once you contest an election, either the party or the candidate, you are not satisfied, the only place you seek for redress is court.
Okay.
And the only challenge I'm having, and I've keep asking this question, why is it that Nigerians establish a kind of long process to determine the final judgment about who win or lose election? Starting from, is it a tribunal, from tribunal to appeal, appeal now to Supreme Court. I was a kind of saying or thinking on my own that it should just be one. And then when it is being announced or a judge is judged, that was what I was on my own expecting that Nigerians should do. And if the law can be amended in that direction, I think it will go a long way. Because a candidate waiting, just like what is going to happen on 29th.
Yes.
Election was conducted on 25th of February. And up to this moment, we are still waiting to know exactly what will be the end of it. A lot of people have already carried hypertension, honestly speaking, because by the time they go through tribunal, and from there, they are not satisfied with the judgment, they move back again to appeal. Maybe over there, you're not satisfied. The other one will now move back to Supreme. And at the end of the Supreme judgment, some will be crying, some will be jubilating. If it is done once, I think it will be the better approach. Everybody will relax. For instance, maybe Prof will clarify this one, though he's not among those who is the judges in the, but as lawyer he is. People has been agitating and they're arguing about 25% of federal capital territory. Well, if the appeal court tribunal comes up now and said 25% of federal capital territory is a law and stands. If a president does not win that, he cannot be a president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Why waiting until after 29th? A president-elect who did not secure that percentage is being sworn in, and you now move to appeal. For appeal, to say no, this very law stands. Or after that again, you move to Supreme. I mean, I look forward to see that courts, whether tribunal, whether what do you call it, any court at all,
yes,
is a final hope for a common man. Why did people go to court? Because they want justice.
yes,
they want justice, and for elections in Nigeria to be authentic, I think court is in position.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doctor. That was very, very expository. Though some of your demands will surely require constitutional amendments. Yes, because as it stands, the court processes can start, if it's an election case, from the tribunal, the appeal court and Supreme Court. If it's a civil case or otherwise, sometimes from the High Court to the appeal court, just like that, you know. But let's get the thought of Dr. Maxwell. Now, you are as bothered as I am, because just like Dr. Emeka has said, we've seen governors being sworn in, and sometimes the courts will upturn their election. We've seen some being affirmed, like the case of Osun, which we are going to discuss later on this program. But you can't really take away the role of courts in terms of our elections, in terms of our democratic practice. What's your take?
Yeah, if I may toe the line of Prof, or to a bit look at what Prof said,
yes,
in terms of affirmation, I ask myself, is there really affirmation from our court proceedings, or etc., etc.? What I've seen over or in recent times.
Okay.
Let me not be too holistic.
Yes.
Like, in recent time, what I've seen from the court is contradictory. You can't say whether it's affirmation, but rather what we see is actually a declaration. Because when you look at the premise to which verdicts are declared in court in recent times, putting the apex court into proper perspective, yes, you ask yourself, are these not the same judges? Someone looked at that case in the lower case. Okay. Yeah, we understand that in the case of presidency, the Supreme Court is the court of first instance. They don't need to go through the normal tribunal appeal. So after the Supreme, the appeal, the tribunal which is set up by the appeal court, you go to Supreme Court for final validation of whatsoever has been said. I understand the fact that professionalism, when you have more experienced people, the eyes to which you will use to look at something at the lower level may be different from what the other person will say. But from my experience following issues of democracy and court proceedings towards validation or affirmation or declaration of any candidate, which I've seen in recent times, I discovered that even the Supreme Court don't actually go through the genesis of all was done. It's the lower courts that establish all those nitty-gritties. Now, what the apex court does is the verdict as given by the lower court vis-a-vis looking at the evidences they brought and the way the whole thing they look at it, how does it collate and everything. Not that they go back to go and scrutinize in details what actually was done. So because if we say it's affirmation of what has been done or what has been declared, whether it's real or not, I wondered, I said this here, the case of Lawal, the Senate president, and I forgot
this other guy, yeah?
Is not, should we call that affirmation? When the Electoral Act is very clear. The lower court said, this man is the duly nominated person. The appeal court said, this man is the duly nominated person. Suddenly from nowhere, you saw an affirmation of what was not conducted. So only God knows the kind of verdict that has been coming out in recent times. We saw the Supreme Court governor that everybody is referring to. The fourth person who scored the fourth in the list of contestants became the governor.
Are you talking about the case of
Imo State?
Yes,
Yes.
became the governor.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say that, yes, in as much as Nigerian or an average individual believe that the court's supposed to be
the last hope.
The last hope for common man. But what we now see, he's becoming the last hope for the well-to-do and those that have the connection.
The highest bidder.
The highest bidder. So I think the judges are human beings. They are human beings. They should have the same feelings that we are having when the masses is. See, we are researchers. Prof is a professor. So yeah, I know what it takes to get there. A lot of researchers have been carried out before he got there.
Yes.
He understands that in attaining that particular position, several research that were carried out has to do with the people, policy on the people, not trying to solve the problem of their people.
Yes.
Prof, is it not the people? We don't do research in vacuum.
Of course,
we do research to create solutions to the people.
Yeah.
So when we now see a judgment coming out that is negating the solution to the people, I wonder, where are these people from? Are they Nigerians? Are they? Yeah, they should understand that the reason why people constantly come to court is also their fault. Now, their fault in the sense that what will it take for the Supreme Court before election? That need not to be a case of tribunal to interpret the 25%. You don't need to go to a tribunal. If that has been interpreted before now by Supreme Court, or government decide to a motion, secretariat, to interpret, please, interpret this for us. Nobody will go to court and go and be spending money for lawyers and etc. So, see, these areas that we look into in our laws and electoral act, I feel maybe the judges are happy when the people come naturally and find themselves in front of them. But you can easily just provide the solution.
It's their profession.
Time. Yeah, you can provide the solution before time. Because at the end of the day, none of us will be troubling ourselves. Now, if you look at, was it not Shah that took the federal government to court? Let's go back memory lane. Yes. Jonathan, doctrine of necessity. When he became an issue that he cannot take over as president. Yeah. What was the word? It was Shah. Shah. The Shah as an English word now has several meanings. Just like we are seeing several meanings to some of the things we are looking into now. So I think they should do Nigeria best order when a constitution is passed. I think just like the legislature, yes. If they pass a law, I think it's the duty of the judiciary to pick the clause one after the other and make a full pronunciation of what that thing entails. Okay. So that at the end of the day,
thank you, Doctor. I'll just go straight now to Professor Jobodio. Now, it is the belief of Nigerians that the court is blind.
Well, literally.
Literally. Okay, literally. Okay, Prof just said literally that the court is live. So that's why we have that logo where the woman's eyes are blindfolded. Yeah, but is it like that in reality? Let me just.
Okay, well, you know, we don't have much time, so going to introspection, we'll pick up our time here. But let me just first say that justice symbol, the veil is to tell you that it's not. It's, I said, literally blind to the extent that it is not. There's no bias, no favoritism.
Yes.
Doesn't care who we are.
Yes.
Doesn't care whose ox is God. As it were, you know.
Yes.
So both rich, both poor, both mighty, both strong. You know.
Subjected to same law.
Objective. So it's going to be very objective. So the only thing it sees is the law, and not the face of the person canvassing the law, or the face, disposition, tribe, religion, whatever, of the litigants.
Yes.
That is what justice is. That sign is the sign of justice. But of course, if we go into our jurisprudence and we know there's a difference between judgment and justice, law and justice, they are quite different, but that's not a forum for that anyway. But let me quickly attend to some of the issues raised. First and foremost, 25% is already subject before the court, so we can't discuss that. It's not here anymore. And then secondly, it is possible, like they've hinted that, you know, we as ordinary man in the city, in the street, the ordinary citizens, we sometimes misconstrue the role of the courts and also misconstrue judgments of courts. At times we are driven by emotion, passion, and at times it creates a lot of problem for us. We need to be a little bit circumspect and patient to understand what the judgments are about. I asked somebody informally, you know, in the last 4 years, I had to challenge a colleague of mine, a younger colleague, when he said Supreme Court governor. I said that is not, that's a denigration of the Supreme Court. The Imo State reference is not supposed to be in that manner, because not everybody knows what the court went through to arrive at the so-called number 4 becoming number 1. You didn't know the process. Anybody that wants the Supreme Court to get judgment at the final court of arbiter, you got justice. And that is how it is, unless you go to God. I can ask somebody, I said, if you had a dispute over land with somebody, let's say even inheritance, or a chieftaincy title, if you fought and succeeded in the Supreme Court, will you be happy if I call your land Supreme Court land? Or I call you, say, Supreme Court chief.
Yes.
If you were a chieftain, I can tell you the chieftaincy title going on in somewhere in Anegbete, in Esako East or so.
Yes.
That case, I read that case when I was a student in 1986, 87. I read that case at that level. I thought that case is in the Supreme Court. So the court, you can see in court today. It's just moved to Court of Appeal after almost close to 40 years. So now, so what do you say about that? So Supreme Court is the final court. Whatever they decide, you should at least give them that reverence. Even among lawyers, my colleagues, a lot of them who come to TV to browbeat, I think I get disappointed.
Yes. Now,
you are saying Supreme Court. My friend is talking about number 4. The Labour Party candidate is number 3. He's in tribunal. And I know a lot of people are praying, fasting, pray that he becomes returned as the president of Nigeria. So if tomorrow, how will you feel somebody say he took 3rd and became president? If Supreme Court makes him president tomorrow as number 3, not even 2, the article that took 2nd, is not even as vociferous, hopeful as he is. He is more hopeful. He believes he won, but he took 3rd. Supreme Court tomorrow goes through the case and is able to find out that they were rigging, there was irregularities, malpractice, as we say it in law, and therefore he decides to nullify some elections, deduct some votes here and there, and he suddenly becomes number 1. How will you feel somebody calling Supreme Court president? So that is why we should be patient when we review the court system in Nigeria.
Yes.
The judges are not infallible, but they say we are infallible because we are Supreme. That's Supreme Court. A notable judge, put our GSS made it clear. Say we are not infallible because we are Supreme. We are Supreme because we are infallible. Get the point? What it means that we are not beyond mistakes. We are not beyond the mistake.
Yes.
And even in human life, everybody has nobody is beyond mistake. But what the law is honest mistake. Honest mistake. Mistake that is driven not by a mischievous, malicious, or fraudulent intent, but the mistake of the brain, because it happens to anybody. So the Supreme Court can make mistakes here and there. But it is not good to be judgmental. I'm even among my colleagues to come on air and bring them. Because we as lawyers portray the justice system and our apex court. That is why some of us, those on the street, our friends who are not learned in this system, that we ought to educate, we cannot educate them. I was there when I talked about the Supreme Court judgment ruling on the Naira swap or cash. I was there before election.
Yes.
I think that was February. And I made it very clear. I said there was no reason why anybody should disobey Supreme Court order. Ex parte, interim, by whatever means, is the apex court. What are we saying now? Now, let's bring it back to brass tacks.
Okay.
Now, the Osun State election that we are reviewing now, Supreme Court's judgment, it has given to the PDP and opposition party. Of course, they are happy, they celebrate. So, Supreme Court has made the right decision because it favors Mr. A. But Mr. B may feel aggrieved. If the retailer who was the appellant had gone to air to say Supreme Court is not right, it is that blackmail judges, how will you feel? So, we cannot all be winners. The court will only decide based on the evidence before the court, based on documentary evidence and based on what we call oral evidence, and then also based on the expertise and experience of the lawyers too. Some of our lawyers too go to court with very weak cases. I have tried in my little profession that I do when I do, but not to give my clients. I've lost breaths. Clients will come to me, they want me to give them assurance that you will win the case. I say, I can't tell you I'll win the case, and I cannot also tell you that I'm the best lawyer. Neither will I run down my colleagues as some people do. That I'm the best, I can win it. Because when you give your clients a false impression about his case, you do not sit down to prepare the case, review it with him. Even when they are educated, you give them false impression that you are a superstar and that the judge will give you judgment, or that he has a very good case when he has a very bad case. And so when you now prepare him with that mindset, and then when things don't go your way, because you want to absorb yourself the blame, you want to absorb yourself, you now push it to the judge. The judge is wrong, the judge is biased. You won't go as far as even accusing the judge of being compromised. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but we should be very temperate. Because as election matters are very sensitive, they are. The judges who are sent there, like we said, are human beings. But we expect them to rise above board. That is why, coming to Dr. Kuga's point, that is why you see that we have layers of checkers. Yes, it's possible to say, let's Supreme Court be the court of first and final instance in presidential elections, for example, as it's been done in Kenya, that in the US. And it's also a bridge time, so you can do within 6 months or even less than 6 months, so that you can determine the actual winner before you inaugurate or swear in. But again, you see, it's a work in progress. We have been retooling our electoral act. We are amending, even the constitution has been amended. This is the fourth alteration, as we call it now, fourth time we are amending the constitution, as it were, and more will come because we're still in the process to ensure that we have a seamless, a little bit, less strenuous and less, elongated education period of post-election litigation. Don't forget that this Labour Party candidate now, who is in court now, when he tried to get his mandate back in Anambra, 2006, he spent 3 years in court, the longest ever, 3 years. He got his money back around 2008 or something. That's what I'm saying about that period. Before the trial was amended, we used to be in tribunal for about 2 years. The governor-elect or governor who is sworn in, the president who is sworn in will be in the office, will have sworn in commissioner, he could have even done, he will change commissioner for the first, before they will pronounce that he's either elected or non-elected. But now we have this electoral act and constitution has streamlined to roughly less than 8 months, because we have 180 days if it's the governorship, 180 days, 60. Now for the presidential election, it's just 180 plus 60. That's roughly 240 days. Give or take, that less than 8 months, if I'm not mistaken. My arithmetic or my mathematics adds up. So we can do better. We can get to the US position where you must determine before you swear. We can get to the Kenya, our next Ghana. It's a work in progress. And as my colleague said, researchers will keep researching, want to look how possible. We also want to balance it. If you reduce the time frame, it means the petition cannot prove his case. Even the time we have now, it's not easy for them to prove 180 days. Now they are talking about media trial, granting leave for court police to be aired on TV. They are joining here and there. They're talking about the 17th. Time is going. A month is already out of it. So what time do you have to prove? Because you want election polling unit by polling unit. If you say you want Rivers State as a claim now, you have to prove how you want Rivers State. And you have to call it polling unit by polling unit, at least the ones you are contesting. And you're talking about the country. 1,000 plus, or how many thousand plus people you have in the country? Or what we have in the country, 36 states and the FCT. What time do you have to prove that? And you don't forget, somebody came second, he says he took first. Where took third, he came first. So now took third has a more adult stars. First, you must prove that you came second first, and then prove how you came first. What time do you have to do that? So if we now streamline the time to say you must continue before you inaugurate. So I think what we have now is both ways. let the man be a de facto president, as we call it, not de facto in sense of it. But when every time the Supreme Court rules that you're not the president, then you leave them, have a jury president, called the jury. And that's why the Supreme Court, the Constitution has been amended too, for governors, for electoral act, for the legislature. And if you are elected or supposedly elected by INEC, you return by INEC, if election is nullified by whatever means, then there's an ancillary order that you have to refund, forfeit all the salaries and the emolument you earn for that period. That is, we are moving forward gradually. But we cannot obtain the laws you have signed or what you have done. It's a gradual process.
Okay,
So
thank you, Prof.
That is something I wanted to kind of...
Yeah, Doctor, I'll allow you react to what Professor Joe Bojo has said, but that will be immediately after this break. Okay. Just a brief break. And after that, my guests, they are ready to comment more detailed discussion on this very topical issue. Okay, it's a delight to have you back on the program. It is 60 Minutes Nigeria. My name is Egosa Agbalao. I have with me Professor Joe Bojo, Dr. Emeka Ekuga, and of course, Dr. Maxwell Osage. We are looking at the role of the courts in strengthening democracy, and we decided to take a case study of Osun State, where recently the Supreme Court affirmed Adeleke as the duly elected governor. You know, he's a dancing governor, and he has all the reason to dance now. But my guests are analyzing this. Okay, ask Davido to dance with you.
Everybody's dancing with you.
Okay, so Dr. Emeka, you were just about making some comments about what Professor Joe Bojo said. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have the floor.
You know, I was trying to say that my fear in this regard, just like Prof was explaining, you know, we learn in part.
Exactly.
I've learned a lot of things from his explanation.
Okay.
As long as court verdicts are concerned.
Yes.
But there is this fear I have. When a president, let's say president-elect is being sworn in,
yes,
he is now a president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Commander
of the
forces.
Commander-in-chief. Yeah.
Commander-in-chief.
Yes.
So he can hire and he can fire. And while we are waiting for the court to decide whether he will remain a president or not, I know it has happened before. In the case of Osumbo and Shomole.
Okay, in Edo State.
Yes, in Edo State.
That's just governorship.
That's just governorship.
Yes.
But all the same, if Mr. President, President-elect becomes a substantial president on 29th of May, he can say to the judges, you can't be here again. He can say to this, you can't be here again. And nobody we raise voice and say he has not done anything, he has done anything wrong or right. Nobody dare make any
challenge the president.
Challenge him in Nigeria. That is my fear, because as my prof was explaining now, the explanation as a lawyer is very clear. Yeah, my mind began to go the other way around. These people, they try you.
Yes.
You know, checking all this, trying to balance this,
yes,
trying to get to this. But assuming in Nigeria, the judges, the lawyers, put them all together, has this fear of justice must be done. I would be so glad.
Yeah, that's what they are doing.
Yeah, well, we agree.
That some persons may not agree.
Yes, like doctor said here, you know, who pay higher? It's mostly who they attend to in this country.
No, but we cannot authenticate that.
No, but you and I know. Each time we come here, and then when one said something that is real, you will always.
The public space, you have to protect.
Yes, based on the rules of the broadcasting. I don't argue with you. Anything you say, you are the final judge here now. If you tell us the time is over, it's over. Even if when it's not over.
I think there is a court judgment that says NBC don't even have right to
that's the correct one. The correct one.
To suspend any
broadcasting. To find.
Yes, like Prof said, whatever we discuss whatever we discuss here, we must have evidence.
Yeah, that's right.
And you don't just insinuate, because you are broadcasting to different strata of the public.
Yes, you have to.
So you have to be very careful. Well, that's the reason why I try to moderate.
Yes, of course, at the same time, this is just my fear.
Your opinion.
My opinion. So I pray that in the case of presidency,
can I quickly allay your fears before you go back to Dr. Fuga? Okay. Let me allay your fears, because your fears now will be tempting to almost we are towards anarchy. It won't happen. It cannot happen because why? The pressure you mount, in fact, the blackmail, I call it blackmail, subtle blackmail that is often targeted at the judiciary, that is when you should reserve it for the presidency if it ever does that. Because first, to remove a justice of the Supreme Court or even a judge of the Court of Appeal, you must go through the legislature. Yeah, it's not the president cannot just wake up and remove it.
Even the legislature.
When we just remove the legislature, he just go to the cupboard.
Is it not or whatever?
He just go to his cupboard and say, there is one thing.
Well, let us.
We are talking about Nigeria.
Let us conclude. Let us be negative in our.
No problem. We see those that they've removed before.
Just before now. I say you should calm down, and let's introspect. When I here, let us guide those outside.
Okay.
I'm telling you that when you have fears, they are checkers. If people abuse power, it's a different thing.
No, but Prof.
Let me finish. Just become. My take is that let us put what is on ground, and then it gives you areas you can come in when there's likelihood of abuse. If there's an abuse of power, then you can rise up. Even you can rise up, even as citizens. Like I told you, if you have a legislature, there's a procedure for removing them. So if a man who has a matter like going back in the tribunal says, I want to remove him. After all, Obasanjo was taken to court more than 6 times. And he was a military man. He didn't do it. So how would you not expect that somebody else would do it? There's no president for it in the first place, and it doesn't appoint him. So this is the first time we have such issues that happened. Even when we had election that was tagged, do or die election, nobody did that. So let's have that.
So you have allayed his fears now.
Because first of all, there are checkers. Yes. You as press, you are there. The National Committee is there. When you tried in Pakistan when they did it, the National Committee came and handled them. That is akin to a coup, I can assure you, to a coup against the judiciary. So it's not about you being careful. If you talk about singular issues of 1 or 2 judges who either they were set up or they were removed, that's different from a panel of 5. Will they remove the 5 at the same time? Okay. Will they remove the 5 at the same time?
Because Supreme Court has to do with 5.
Even a couple of appeals is 3, 5. So let's not. These are not things we should be imagining, because Nigeria has not gone to that pariah state.
It's not as bad as that.
Yeah,
okay, let's
not come on air and create this very
very
solid picture.
Okay, thank you.
There is a saying that the voices of the people
is the voice of God.
The voice of God. But we've often seen, when we say creating fear, fears are created when over time you see what comes out of the reality is actually the opposite side.
Yes, turn around.
So eventually, we all belong to a place. In some establishments, some people don't talk. Not that they don't really have the real idea of that thing, but because they felt, these people, let me just behave myself and just collect my salary and go my way. So, and that has become the norm over time, which ought not to be. We are a free society. We're a free society. We should be able to express ourselves, whether good or bad. That's what freedom of speech expresses to us. But however, one of the things that have led to this thing is because the electoral body, which is saddled with the responsibility to ensure that this fear don't constantly rekindle in our hearts, has failed totally. So if Prof says something about the Electoral Act, that we've seen electoral act being amended over and over again, our constitution being amended over and over again. But we hardly see
the effect.
High and the mighty playing by the rules. As high as Ekweremadu, I listened to the verdict of the judgment. He said, with all the appeals everywhere and everything, which means the law also has its own side of mercy, which we know. With all the etc., the punishment would have been much more. Are you getting it? But because the appeal from different corner, it has been reduced to this year, total number of years. The gravity of the offense is still waiting to be translated to a community service or etc. It has to be a punishment that has to go through the normal prison, etc. So why am I, when you see that kind of verdict, I'm not saying, I'm not supporting, but when you see that kind of verdict, you can say the law is blind. As mighty as that, you say the law is blind. But do you see that here? That is the fear that is constantly propagated by some classes of people among those that doesn't really have this influence, as you can say. So when we have this, to me, there are several ways the electoral empire can solve this. Why must I want to ask a question. Must we sworn in somebody before you determine the verdict? Yes, we said something. Must we, if we say the law, it takes 180 days, is it a crime if we do election in July, a year before the swearing in year? Will it be a crime? Those making the law, why would they come up with an idea that, okay, let election hold July, like 10 months or thereabout,
so
15 months to the time.
I know we are
hold election. Yes. Hold the election in July. So between July and the following year, maybe February, all matters may have resolved. Then you cannot stand in February. You said, okay, we know the winner. We all now have 3 months to prepare and reason our mind together that this is not the authentic winner. Why must you spend Nigeria money? Now, do you know what it takes to service a president in one day? That you will not service somebody, a governor, you service governor for a number of months, 3 months thereabout. Then before you will not hear a statement that you are not the governor. Then all that has been spent, your tax, taxpayers' money has been spent wrongly, just on the ground that the law fails to cater for such lacuna. So for crying out loud, we can't be wasting money every now and then. We just saw the amount of money. Do you know what it takes to spend 400 billion on something that you never use? You spend 400 billion on ensuring that, we have the beavers, etc. Did you see the beavers play a role in the presidency? Now you see the electoral empire creating this fear, and you are saying the people should not be afraid?
Okay.
These are things we need to be concerned about.
Yeah, I know that Prof wants to react to it.
I may not, but if you want me to react, I will react.
Please go on.
Just to say that, let's bring back to the main issue. When you talk about whether the justice is blind, let's now put Osun State in retrospect. Is justice blind there, or justice was half blind now? What would you say to that? You see, justice, like I said, is how you perceive it. This discussion is actually to be centered on the Osun State. I also will have enough time to do that.
Okay.
So Osun State in retrospect now, I'm sure maybe because of the way the judgment has gone or the trajectory, you may say, okay, you're okay with that judgment. Also,
they refer to the beavers.
No, not about beavers.
They said the beavers data is the authentic.
So it means that you can have it this way or that way. That is what I'm making. And then whenever you don't feel comfortable with the judgment, try if it's at apex court. You can grumble quietly, but don't apart from my colleagues, don't come on air and denigrate them before the public, because you are going to create this kind of fear that you are expressing now. Because tomorrow there will be no confidence in the judiciary system. I'm asking people to resort to self-help, you see, and we don't want that. So no matter how infallible they might be, like I said, they make mistakes. You must still keep faith in check. We have no other choice. Other is because self-help. We all recall the other incidents of electoral violence in the West during the first Republicans. We don't want that. So the fact that people can still be patient, let's go to the court and ventilate our grievances. Whether I get it or not, I have to move on. Oyetola just congratulated the governor on seat. He has been there for a while. The same governor lost by whatever means. He went to court. He also lost. When the first time he tried, they said he didn't win, even though they did a rerun and in fact he was rigged out. He went to court. As we speak now, people are still in court. Even in those states, a lot of matters going on after the 3 election in those states. People, House of Assembly, House of Reps, and people are going to court. So if the court is such a failure as my colleagues want to paint it, people will go to court. So it means that there's a plus, there's a minus. A plus or a minus. But we are working towards how we can have more pluses. Also, because we acknowledge there are minuses. Yes, of course, people are compromised. People can do a lot of things. Even among the academics, we have some of us who are not too good. Your profession, that have people who are not too good. Yeah. So it's a general problem for us. Yeah. So, but we cannot profile an arm of government and then we just create this, this haze about it. No, that would not be fair. So because there are those who are doing their best.
In your opinion, Prof, all Nigerians must support the judiciary.
Oh, yeah, we have no choice. Otherwise, maybe we want to support military rule.
Okay.
You have no choice.
Thank you very much.
Well, Prof, thank
Dr. Emeka, your concluding remarks. Must we patiently support the judiciary because of their pivotal role in strengthening democracy?
You know, I said it earlier. After God, government. And in this issue, after God, the judges. Okay. Except you don't want to continue existing in a free society or movement. I encourage that the courts or the judges be encouraged. But at the same time, I also challenge them to be honest in whatever they are doing. Prof, I wanted to say, you are a lawyer, so there is no way you will not defend your field. There is no way you will not.
Some are very objective.
The truth is declared that you need to.
We have to. So there is no way. I appreciate you for standing firm on what the profession you know better and your colleagues. I appreciate you for that. But also help us. I wish you will grow to that level.
No, we are doing our best at our level.
By the time by the time I discover, I found out you are there now, I will have confidence that yes, I and this man has been discussing about justice. As long as this, he will deliver accurately what is right. Let it not be who pay more.
Yes.
You know, the highest bidder.
I guess it's.
Let it not be that. Let them do the right thing. Osun State governorship judgment. The APCs, you can't tell me, even if the former governor congratulated Adeleke, you can't tell me he was so happy with whatever. But if it is clear that the guy won the election, because if you go to Osun State and see jubilation alone, you will agree with me that the people voted for him. Just like in this presidency, after declared president-elect, everywhere you go, you see people very sober. Only few, unlike. So I pray God will help us, and I pray for the judiciary, I pray for the judges, that God will give them wisdom, so that they will dispense justice for the benefit of mankind in this wonderful nation.
Dr. Emeka. Dr. Master, your concluding remarks.
Thank you. Indeed, without judiciary, the world will be a mess. Okay. The high, the mighty will ensure that the low don't even rise up and move as far as the free society is concerned. We understand that we don't have a choice. We cannot go to military rule. What makes democracy is the judiciary and the legislature. So, but be that as it may, we
government of the people, for the people, by the people.
To the judges, we understand that they are humans, but before they make certain verdict or certain declaration or affirmation, they should sit in front of mirror. There are few questions they need to ask themselves. Am I just giving this judgment for myself, or am I giving this judgment for the entirety of the society. They should speak to themselves. For this judgment I want to give, will my child or my grandchild, will it be happy 15 years or 10 years to come? What will be the repercussion of this judgment I want to give right now? With the neighbors that I have around me, what will be the impact to their lives? Now, when we put this into proper perspective, you will know that you are dealing with lives by your pronunciation.
Yeah.
So because you are dealing with life, you are dealing with their emotions and everything, you must sit down and talk to yourself and advise yourself, do this for the Lord.
Gentlemen, I must thank you.
Thank you too. Thank you.
Yeah, because today's discussion is one that you say we'll keep it for another day.
Yes,
because it's very touching, the issue of the judiciary. But I must admit that my guests congratulated the Osun people, congratulated the judiciary for the judgment regarding Osun State governorship election. And they said that the jubilation among the locals is an indication that the judgment is perceived to be the right judgment. And they are also looking forward to a situation where after election, you see people cut branches of trees and begin to jump around the town to celebrate. When that is done, some of my guests will know that that election was credible. So let me put it in that perspective.
Not the sponsored one.
Okay.
Not the sponsored one.
We said some jubilation can be sponsored. That's the program for this week. I hope you've enjoyed every bit of our discussion. Once again, I thank my guests.
Thank you
so much. You have a wonderful weekend ahead. Bye-bye.